Gonna try a new camera angle today, see if that helps. And let's adjust this a little bit. And we're gonna start by weighing our completed wing. This is before doing the dihedral and tissue tubes, but it's after covering and after all the covering glue is dried. And we're just going to hang it from the same hook and try not to puncture the covering. 300, 335. Looks like it's getting carried around a little by the breeze. 323. Excellent. My last one at this stage was about, well, actually with tissue tubes was 400. So that's, I'm happy with that. Main difference, I had pretty much the same mass as on all the parts. So main difference was glue control. Alright, so with the covering on, we're at 323. So the covering added about 73 milligrams, the covering and glue. I guess we'll be about 350 when we're all said and done on this one. So I just need the tissue tubes and the dihedral glue. So we'll try and set up for doing the dihedral next. Alright, we're going to set up to set the dihedral, and the critical dimension is 55 centimeters span. So I've got a glass sheet here. You could do it on just a Formica build board, whatever. Need a flat surface, and then I put 2 pieces of blue tape on here and have measured carefully to make sure these 2 lines are parallel to each other and 55 centimeters apart. Then we need some stands that are made to have the top of the rib shape, because we're going to put the wing in upside down, and the chord of the wing, and the right height to set our dihedral. I've got that height in the build notes. I don't recall what it is. I guess we could measure this right here. Looks about 1.7 inches. Yeah, 1.7 inches. I previously used these made out of wood, so you just cut the rib shape into it. Let's double check. Well, this is 1.6 inches. Well, that would explain why I've got a difference here. Yeah, these are just a little bit tall. 1.45, 0.2, 1.65, and these are 1.62 or so. Anyway, you can adjust for that. Just something about 1.6 inches tall. That'll cradle the wing upside down. Put them on your board about 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 to start with. And then you want to get your wing and put it top down on these supports. And then we're going to move these supports out to be near the outer rib. It doesn't have to be quite there. And the outer ends of the wing should be longer at this point than our 55 centimeters. Okay. Then we're going to take some couple of 1/8 inch square hardwood dowels, they call them, but I wouldn't call them dowels because they're square. I'm just going to put a couple on there to kind of hold the wing still while we're doing our work. We need a brush, and you want to have some index cards handy. because we'll use those for shimming. Alright, at this point you need your acetone. And it helps to have a knife blade that you haven't put under everything. Where are my knife blades? Now pause. Alright, found my knife blade. It was with my stab. Alright, now remember we put in a very small amount of glue joining the tip to the spars, and we're just going to put in some acetone and flood it pretty good. You don't want the acetone taking out the rib joint, so be careful where you put it, and that's why we were careful just to glue the tip to the spar and not to the rib. If it got on the rib, you can get it off. It just takes a little more work. You might need to coax it off with a blade. Just come in and just be patient. You don't want to break it here. This is a high stress area, and if you break the wood, you got more problems. So just be patient with it. Keep soaking it with acetone. Again, keeping it away from the rib joint. And if you can get the blade in between the spar and the tip, you can start wedging it in there. Still needs more acetone. You've opened up the V-notch a little so you can get some acetone into that V-notch. You can very carefully start to twist that tip down, but if it resists at all, you still need to come in and melt that joint a little bit. Alright, that's just about loose. We'll work on the trailing edge now. You got to keep working on both of them, keep them both moist until you get them both loose. There we go. That one went pretty easily. This one's still grabbing a little bit, but it's mostly loose. So we will just dab in a little bit more. And if you have cheap stopwatches, you know what that incessant beeping in the background is, but that's alright. They always go back to beeping mode. Alright, so you want the tip ends to be right in the pocket between the rib and the spar. So we'll leave it at that. We'll make adjustments once we get both ends loose. Start soaking this end. Again, be patient. Don't force anything. When it goes, it'll let you know. Alright, let's see how it's going here. Got most of that wedge free, but still in there. So we'll work some acetone into the V-notch there, working from the outside end to try and get it onto the the glue that's holding the tip on and not the rib glue. And you can apply a little bit of torsion down to see if it's loose. It's not quite loose yet. Get a little more soaking in there. Work on the back one a little bit. Back one's free. Front one's free. So then we can just gently push it down. If it starts binding up, just add a little more acetone into the joint. You don't want it imposing a stress in there. You want it nice and loose. Alright. Now, both of the tips are down touching the board, and I'm going to slide this setup. Make sure your spar is parallel to the edge of the board, and assuming these lines are perpendicular to the edge of the board. And we're real close there. And what I'll do is I will take an index card and just place the end of it onto the straight part of the curved tip. And we are about 2 millimeters in on both ends. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip an index card under the straight part of the tip to jack it up just a bit, and you've still got the lines showing. Looks like it could go another millimeter. So we're just going to jack it up with 2 index cards there, and then we will come back and put the index card on the top of the straight portion, just the end of the index card onto it, and then look at where the line is, and we look pretty close. We're maybe a millimeter short total, but better short than long. Don't need to get to the contest and find out your oversize. And you've already got glue in the joint, so you don't need a lot of glue, but you want to finish up this glue joint where the tip meets the rib and the spar. So I'm going to put a good size drop of 50-50. Still a small drop, but good size. And one thing you can do if it comes loose is take your tweezers, wherever they went, here's a set, and just come in here and squeeze the tip against the spar. It doesn't take much. Looks pretty good on this one. But the tip should be touching the rib, should be touching the spar. Make sure nothing got tweaked out of adjustment when you did that. And now we're going to let that sit. You probably want to let it sit about a half an hour. And then our next step will be to take up the bagginess in this tip. It's a really slick solution. It works quickly, and I guess one thing I should have mentioned, before you do this step, inspect your outer rib and make sure the covering is well attached to the outer rib. If that's come loose, you really want to get that attached before you put the dihedral in, or it's going to give you trouble with the covering when you try and tighten up the covering. So we're going to take a pause for about a half an hour, then we'll flip the thing over and take up our excess covering in the tips. Alright, we've let it set for a few hours while I ate lunch and did some gardening, so back to it here. We will take off the extra weights, the cards on the corners, and now we will flip the wing over. Or you can set it back in the stand here, or just set it on the table, whatever works for you. And you can see here that the tip covering is rather floppy because we bent it up and so it's loose here. Let's put a stick back on this just to keep it from running away on me. Alright, so you're going to take your paintbrush and you're going to get your thinnest 3M77 and solvent mixture. This is the 180 to 1. And you're going to find the natural crease right here in the corner and get a good wet brush and kind of run it into the corner. This is why you're using the thinnest glue, because you don't want to add a lot of weight here, but the capillary force of all that liquid is just sucking the covering up. So it's closing that fold, and it's actually the cover folding in on itself. So you want to kind of lay the brush into that crease, and once it starts, it progresses quickly across the whole surface. So we've got a little crease here. I don't know if this will close up. No, it doesn't. It's closing up a little bit. So it's actually folding the covering on itself, but usually it's going to be right along the rib where you get most of it. So again, it's baggy along the rib. You want to find that natural crease. Just get a good wet brush right in the corner, and it just grabs it right away. It's like magic. And then once that crease starts, you just kind of follow it with the brush, and it'll be right along near the rib. If you're perfectionist, you can probably get it right against the rib so it doesn't show up. It looks like we've got similar crease at the leading edge here. We'll see if we go to the sharpest part of the crease and start it there, and yeah, it's just closing it right up. So hopefully you could see that. And that's all there is to closing that up. They both closed that. We'll try this one a little bit more here. Yeah. If it's not doing it, just get your brush a little wetter, and that capillary force will just pull it together. Now we've got both tips nice and tight. We want that to dry for 10 minutes or so, and we'll be able to put the wing away. Yeah, the only other thing now is you've got the little bit of excess spar material there. And I've got ½ an inch or so on each spar. That's a little excessive. So we'll clip that off, and what I find works fairly well is get yourself a decent pair of nail clips. Don't want to get the cheapest stuff, it'll just mash the wood. This might be too cheap, I might have to pull out my good ones. But come in here and just squeeze it off. Now you do have boron on there, so make sure it doesn't end up on the floor, or it'll end up in your sandals at some point. And believe you me, that's not comfortable. Just be careful when you're doing this, you don't clip the actual trailing edge. You just get the spar. So before squeezing, get a good look at where those nippers are at. But yeah, that cleans it up real nice. This one's still a little bit long. Clipping parallel to the tip, and that does a good job. If you've potentially got boron pieces around, take yourself a piece of the blue tape and just pick up the pieces. That will sequester them boron and all on the blue tape. Fold it over and toss it in your trash. So, yeah, it looks like we've got a bit of an edge on the bottom there where we folded. It doesn't matter here, and that's why you want to get it close to the rib. But this one on the leading edge, you usually won't have that. I don't know why both sides had a leading edge crease here. But because it pulled together the top, you've got a ridge running on the bottom, and you can just get that to lay down, and it won't bother anybody now. So the only thing left on the wing is putting on the tissue tubes, and that'll wait for a few days when I finish my motor stick. It's pretty much the last thing I do is mount the wing to the tissue tubes. So at this point, we will put the wing away for safe storage. I do have one other thing I like to do, and that's to label my wings so I can keep track of which one it is. I don't see my black Sharpie, so we'll use a green one, make sure it's working. And then I'm going to put a C for Chuck, because sometimes I end up with student wings, and a 6. I believe it's my 6th wing. It's the 6th wing that I've labeled. I'm going to call this whole build number 6. So that's about it on the wing. We'll pick up on the next video with covering the stab.